I'll start with the part nobody believes. I turned 30 this year, which feels too old to be telling ghost stories on the internet and too young to have seen what I've seen. Up until last autumn, my life was aggressively normal. I worked IT for a local insurance office. I rented a forgettable one-bedroom in a mediocre complex. And my biggest fear was my car failing inspection. I had a long-term girlfriend once, but that ended in a very dull, text-heavy breakup that I thought would be the worst it's over I'd ever experience. Then the layoffs hit. Our company did that thing where they promise no one will be left behind, and then take a flamethrower to half the staff. My name was in the third batch of emails. Severance covered maybe 2 months if I stopped eating anything that came in branded packaging. So I took another job. It was supposed to be temporary, just a night shift gig to keep my rent paid while I sent out resumes. A buddy from high school, Matt, messaged me that his uncle needed someone reliable to cover overnight security at a self-storage facility on the edge of town. Easiest paycheck you'll ever get, Matt said. You sit in a warmed office, watch cameras, maybe walk around once or twice. Nobody's gonna rob a storage place at 3 a.m. There's nothing to grab. They'd have to rent a truck. The storage place was called Lakeside Self-Storage, even though the nearest body of water was a retention pond 3 blocks away. It was one of those 3-story concrete boxes you see everywhere now, with faux brick paneling in the front to make it look less like a bunker. I met the manager, Carla, on a Tuesday afternoon in October. She was mid-40s, hair in a tight bun, polo shirt embroidered with the company logo. She shook my hand like a recruiter and slid a clipboard toward me before my butt hit the plastic visitor chair. Night shift is 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., she said. 15 an hour, time and a half if you ever cover a holiday. You stay in the office. You do a patrol on each floor once per shift. You don't leave the property until your relief is here. No exceptions. I assumed it was some corporate nonsense about customer privacy, not checking inside units. Don't accept bribes to let someone peek at their ex's stuff, that kind of thing. We did the standard tour first. She showed me the ground floor units with their roll-up metal doors, the keypads at every entrance, the big elevator that groaned its way up and down the building. Each hallway looked identical. Gray epoxy floor, fluorescent lights, endless rows of doors with numbers stenciled in black. You'll get used to the monotony, she said. I bring books. Or I stream movies. Just keep one eye on the monitors. Ask questions now, not later. You must be inside the office with the door locked by 10:00 p.m. The outside entrance doors lock automatically. If someone arrives after 10:00 p.m. claiming to be a customer, you are not authorized to let them in. Direct them to return during business hours. 2. Always keep at least one interior hallway light on per floor overnight. Do not allow any floor to be completely dark, even briefly. 3. Do not use the elevator between 2:10 and 2:20 a.m. Stay off all stairwells during that time as well. 4. Between 2:12 and 2:18 a.m., Do not acknowledge any knocking you hear from the third floor, regardless of source. 5. If you are on the third floor between 2:12 and 2:18 a.m., it's not recommended, and a knock occurs on a unit door near you, do not. If you see a person on the third floor on camera between 2:12 and 2:18 a.m., confirm their presence by checking. Document the incident and inform management in the morning. 7. If you hear your own voice on the office intercom system and you are alone in the office, do not respond. Turn the volume all the way down and wait 60 seconds. If the voice persists after 60 seconds, activate the building-wide alarm and call the emergency line. 8. Do not enter Unit 317. There is no Unit 317. Someone had underlined that last sentence 3 times. I laughed once, short and awkward, then realized Carla wasn't laughing. Okay, I said slowly, you're messing with me. This is an initiation thing, right? This is not a joke, Daniel. There is no Unit 317, I read aloud. This place goes up to what, 350? You don't need to worry about it, as long as you leave it alone. Corporate overcorrects. Slaps do not enter ever on it and tacks on a spooky story to keep bored guards away. The other part of my brain, the one that was 6 years old and still remembered being dragged out of a dark basement by my mom because I was convinced something was in the laundry chute, did not like the way Carla's eyes kept sliding away from the cameras whenever I mentioned third floor. Why 2:12? I came in at 9:40 p.m., a backpack slung over my shoulder full of the usual, a paperback novel, headphones, a wrapped sandwich, a big thermos of coffee. Carla walked me through the alarm system, showed me how to view each floor's camera feeds, and made me lock the office door behind her when she left. Call me if anything is unclear, she said, handing me a printed list of phone numbers. You won't need to, just don't be brave. Brave is stupid here. The glass let me see the ground floor hallway and the elevator doors. Beyond that, it was all screens. 8 monitors were stacked in a 2x4 grid on the wall, one for each main hallway, one for the loading dock, one showing the outside parking area, one cycling through building entrances. A 9th showed the elevator interior. The sound was off on all of them. The only audio feed came through a tiny knob-controlled speaker for the intercom. From 10 p.m. to midnight, it was boring. Boring is what you want on a night shift, I kept reminding myself. The only person I interacted with was a guy who showed up at 9:55 p.m. with a pickup truck full of boxes, breathing hard, asking if he could just drop these really quick in his unit. I checked the time, saw it was before 10 and buzzed him in. He cursed his way through the keypad, finally got the door open, and winked at me as he shoved his cart toward the elevator. You're a saint, man, he said. Wife would have killed me if I'd had to leave this crap for the morning. The rule book said 1 patrol per shift per floor, any time between midnight and 4 a.m., except for the 2:10-2:20 window when I was supposed to stay out of the elevator and stairwells entirely. So midnight ground floor, 12:20 a.m. second floor, 12:40 a.m. third floor. That left a comfortable hour and change before do not be between floors time. I clipped the little walkie-talkie to my belt. There was only one, the other one was in a drawer for backup, and stepped into the elevator. The metal doors closed with a tired sigh, and the fluorescent light inside hummed like a drunk bee. There's something surreal about walking empty hallways that are designed for people and noise and movement. The units were all the same: corrugated metal doors, padlocks, numbers. The silence made my footsteps too loud. It smelled like dust and concrete and faintly motor oil. I walked each hallway, checked the emergency exits, made sure no one had propped any doors open. Nothing. Just my reflection following me in the shiny elevator doors when I came back. On the third floor, I noticed unit 317. It was there, like the map said it should be, between 315 and 319. Same gray metal door, same black stenciled numbers. It had a lock on it like every other unit. No crime scene tape, no ominous stains, no weird cold spot. I walked by it, wrote 3FOK on my little clipboard, and went back down. By 1:45 a.m., my eyes were starting to blur. The combination of the heater's dry air and the drone of the monitors was like being in a waiting room for sleep. I checked my phone. No new job interview emails. A few unread messages in the group chat. Matt had sent a gif of a raccoon digging in a trash can, captioned "You tonight." I sent back a blurry photo of the elevator cam and a middle finger. I just opened my book when I heard the first knock. It was faint through the glass, through the closed door, like someone rapping on a metal surface far away. 3 taps. Knock, knock, knock. I looked up at the monitors. Nothing had changed on the ground floor cams. The elevator sat empty at 1F. The outside lot was still. Just my beat-up Corolla and Carla's Honda sitting under the sodium vapor lights. The third floor hallway camera showed an empty corridor, lights buzzing in their usual sickly way. The knock came again. 3 taps, same slow rhythm. I checked the time. 2:11 a.m. My mouth went dry. The office had a cheap wall clock with a sweeping red second hand. I watched it crawl toward the 12, the minute hand clicking over to 2:12. The knocking didn't get louder, but it got more insistent, like it was circling the building through the concrete. I told myself it was the pipes. Some weird overnight plumbing cycle, heat expansion. Rats, anything. The third floor camera flickered, just a stutter, a digital hiccup. The image blurred for a second, then snapped back into clarity. Empty hallway, no movement. I reached for the intercom knob without thinking, then froze. Rule 4, between 2:12 and 2:18 a.m. Do not acknowledge any knocking you hear from the third floor, regardless of source. I pushed my chair back away from the desk. I sat on my hands. Hyper-specific rules are almost always written because something happened once, and someone wrote them down so it wouldn't happen again. The knocks traveled. I can't explain it properly. The building was big. The third floor stretched almost the full length of the property. But the sound behaved like it was walking down a hallway right behind the office wall. 3 knocks, Pause, 3 knocks. A pause long enough for it to move a few doors down. Then 3 knocks again. My brain supplied an image. A single person walking slowly down the hallway, stopping at each unit door, giving it 3 polite taps. Anyone storing grandma's old china or their ex's furniture would sleep right through it in their suburban beds, oblivious. Only the guard would hear. 5 minutes is a long time when you're waiting for something you can't see to pass. I thought about standing up and turning off the 3rd floor monitor, just so I didn't have to look at it fuzzing in and out of focus. But another part of me, stupid or brave, I still don't know, didn't want to look away. Like if I kept my eyes on the feed, whatever was up there couldn't surprise me. At 2:17, the knocks suddenly stopped. No fading out, no last set of taps, just nothing. The fluorescent hum filled the space the sound left behind. My phone buzzed and I just about launched it into the drop ceiling. It was a spam email headline. Congratulations. You've been pre-approved. I laughed shakily and realized my hands were trembling. Nothing else happened the rest of the night. When Carla came in at 6:03 a.m., coffee in hand, she took one look at me and raised an eyebrow. You heard it, she said. I shrugged, trying to play it cool. You guys got some interesting plumbing. Or you'll quit. Those are the only 2 options. What happened? A fugue state. Wouldn't shower unless she put the soap in his hand. Wouldn't answer if you spoke to him without standing directly in front of him and saying his name. Then one morning she woke up and he wasn't in his bed. Front door was locked from the inside. They never found him. I wanted to call bullshit. I wanted to say, that's a messed up story to tell your new hire and walk out. But the truth is I needed the money. And there was something in her voice that sounded less like a campfire storyteller and more like someone repeating by rote a story they'd told a therapist. How long have you worked here? I asked. 8 years, she said. 6 on nights, 2 as manager. I adjusted to the nocturnal schedule surprisingly fast. My interviews dried up, then trickled in again. We'll keep your resume on file became the new lullaby in my inbox. The storage facility, with its concrete chill and humming lights, became my world from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The first few nights, I counted the minutes to 2:12, heart hammering, palms sweating. Eventually, I learned to embrace the routine. I'd time my patrols so I was back in the office by 1:50 a.m. I'd make a fresh cup of terrible coffee around 2:05. Sit back and listen. The knocking always started between 2:11 and 2:13. It always ended by 2:18. Sometimes it sounded farther away, like it was on the opposite side of the building. Sometimes it felt like it was right above me. The 3rd floor camera would glitch, never too much, never long enough to make me think the system was actually malfunctioning. The elevator feed occasionally flickered in sympathy. And always, the hallway looked empty. I asked Carla once why we didn't just turn off access to the 3rd floor entirely at night. We tried that, she said. Corporate said customers paying for climate-controlled units on 3 expect 24-hour access. They're big on customer experience. Until something goes wrong. then they're big on, we never said that. On slow nights, when insomnia and caffeine had me reviewing anything with numbers, I'd scroll through the badge logs. There were entries for all hours on the first and second floors. Night owl business owners grabbing something from their units. Musicians picking up gear after a gig. People like that, third floor, an invisible gap in every night. Until January. It was the coldest week of the year, the kind of cold that makes the air taste metallic. The heater in the office groaned like it was dying, and I'd started keeping a blanket folded over the back of my chair to wrap around my legs at 3 a.m. That Monday, Carla told me we had a new tenant moving into the third floor. A guy named Justin, late 20s, running some kind of online resale business out of a unit. Just be aware he might be around late sometimes, she said. He paid extra for after-hours access. How late are we talking? In a white Sprinter van with no logo on the side, wearing a beanie, fingerless gloves, and the kind of stubble that might be permanent. Yo, you must be Daniel, he said, giving me a friendly nod through the glass. Carla told me about you. Night watch, man, that's hardcore. You're in 329, right? That's what the brochure said. I'm not trying to be here all night. At 1:45 a.m., I saw Justin on the third floor hallway feed, kneeling in front of his unit, fiddling with something small and dark in his hands. It took me a second to realize it was a portable speaker. He stuck it to the metal door with magnets, stepped back, and the faintest thump of bass managed to filter through, even with the audio off. He was setting up workplace music. I picked up the office phone and dialed the number Carla had given me for his application. He answered on the second ring. Yo, this is Justin. Just finishing up. Relax. I mean, I get it, he went on. You gotta spice up the night shift somehow. Don't feed the gremlins after midnight. Classic. I promise I'll be gone before Casper does his rounds. Appreciate you looking out. I watched him wait, watched the doors open, watched him step in. He didn't press a button. My stomach flipped. He leaned back against the wall, head tilted, listening. The lights inside the elevator flickered as the power draw shifted. What are you doing? I muttered at the screen. The elevator doors stayed open, the sensor ticking down its invisible countdown. Usually they'd close automatically after a few seconds. They didn't. Justin grinned up at the ceiling, said something I couldn't hear, and then reached up and pulled on the red emergency stop handle. Not enough to trigger the alarm, just enough to jam the mechanism. The elevator's floor indicator stayed stubbornly on 3. Idiot, I said, standing up so fast my chair rolled into the back wall. I grabbed the walkie, then realized there was no one to walkie to. It was just us. I hit the elevator override on the security panel. Nothing happened. The system reported door open and car stopped, stubbornly refusing to accept my command. 1:58 a.m. I called Carla. She didn't pick up. I called her again and again until voicemail kicked in. Hey, it's Carla, leave. He was recording himself, I realized. Like the previous guy with his GoPro. The building was quiet, too quiet. Even the heater seemed to hold its breath. 2:09 a.m. Rule 3. Do not use the elevator between 2:10 and 2:20 a.m. Stay off all stairwells during that time as well. The rules didn't say anything about someone else being stuck in the elevator. That helpful little voice in my head, the one that narrates risk versus reward, started screaming. If I went up there, I'd be breaking the rule. But if I didn't go up there, I'd be leaving a tenant alone on a haunted floor at the exact time the building did its nightly impossible act. Carla's voice echoed in my memory. Just don't be brave. Brave is stupid here. Maybe he'll get bored, I thought. Maybe he'll cancel his little stunt at the last minute. People chicken out all the time. On the monitor, Justin stared into his phone camera, smirked, and raised his eyebrows like a dare. 2:10 a.m. The clock ticked. The office lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. The elevator feed cut to static for a heartbeat, then came back a little fuzzed, like a videotape that had been paused too long. Justin's smile faltered. The knock came, faint but clear through the walls, 3 slow taps. Somewhere on the 3rd floor, something had started its rounds. Justin looked toward the hallway outside the elevator, his expression going from cocky to intrigued. He said something, probably "there it is," and his breath fogged in the air. I hadn't seen that before. It was never cold enough inside the climate-controlled floors for anyone's breath to show, not even in January. I could see mine in the office now too, just a little. The heater clicked off. 2:11 a.m. The knocking moved. On the 3rd floor camera, the hallway looked as it always did, empty, lights buzzing, door after door closed and secure. The sound didn't match the visuals. It was like it was traveling under the feed, not through it. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks, always moving, always at just the right speed for a person strolling down the corridor. Justin shifted his weight from foot to foot, some of the bravado leaking out of his posture. He was still facing the phone, but he kept glancing at the open door. I picked up the phone again and dialed his number with numb fingers. A second later, his phone lit up in his hand. He looked down, saw my name, and declined the call. The knock came again, closer. I pressed the intercom button for the 3rd floor. My thumb hovered over the switch. "Don't acknowledge it," I whispered, remembering the rule. That applied to me. What about him? The hallway camera glitched. For a fraction of a second, the frame smeared into static and something moved. I didn't see it clearly, not in the way my conscious brain could parse and hold onto. It wasn't a face or a body. It was more like a subtraction, a place the light didn't want to be, tracking along the row of doors roughly at shoulder height. As it passed each unit, the metal shook and the knock echoed. It reached the stretch of hallway that contained Unit 317. The number stenciled on the door flickered. I blinked. For one frame, the 317 was gone. Just flat metal. Then it snapped back into existence like the camera had remembered it was supposed to be there. The knocking stopped. Justin noticed. He straightened, peered into the hallway, then stepped forward, pulling the emergency stop handle back into place. The elevator's warning light blinked once, then went dark. The doors tried to close, only to shudder open again. Something in the sensor wasn't registering. He stepped out into the hallway. "Justin," I said out loud, uselessly, "don't. You guys got, like, a haunted marketing gimmick going on." On the monitor, Justin cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted something down the hallway. I couldn't hear it with the speaker muted, but I could guess the shape of the words. "Hello, anyone there?" Every unit door within 10 feet shuddered at once. Knock, knock, knock. Justin stumbled back, nearly tripping over his own feet. For the first time, I saw real fear on his face. He turned toward the elevator, but the doors slid shut in his face, ignoring the sensor this time. He jabbed the call button. Nothing. On the screen, the floor indicator above the elevator doors was blank. No numbers, no arrow, just an empty gray panel. 2:13 a.m., the temperature in the office dropped another few degrees. My breath was full clouds now. I grabbed the laminated rules sheet without meaning to, fingers slicking over the plastic. Rule 6. If you see a person on the 3rd floor on camera between 2:12 and 2:18 a.m., confirm their presence by checking the logs. If you cannot confirm their presence in the building, do not attempt to contact them. But Justin clearly was in the building. I'd buzzed him in. I'd watched his card swipe the doors. I'd watched him step into the elevator. I flipped to the access log tab on the security software with shaking hands. There he was, Justin H., authorized tenant, card number 4479. Entry at 9:30 p.m., exit at 10:12 p.m., entry again at 10:40, 11:15, 12:05, 12:50, 1:30. Just a short line of entries ending 20 minutes ago, which meant, according to the system, he was still somewhere in the building. I checked the exterior camera again. The van sat in the lot, same as before, no signs of anyone else. I looked back at the 3rd floor feed. Justin had backed up against a unit door, chest heaving. His phone screen glowed in his hand. He'd picked it up again, maybe still recording, maybe calling someone, maybe checking the time. He turned his head slowly, like he'd heard his name whispered. The hallway behind him was still empty. I saw his lips form 2 syllables. "Who's there?" This time, they didn't come from a door. They came from the camera. The image shook like something had tapped the lens from the inside. The sound traveled through the speaker, even with the volume down all the way. A hollow thud that made my molars ache. Justin flinched. He looked directly into the camera. For one terrible second, his eyes weren't his. They weren't demon black or glowing or any of the usual horror story cliches. They were just wrong. Pupils slightly too wide, whites too flat, focus slightly off like he was looking at me from too close to the screen. Then he squeezed his eyes shut and shook his head, hard like a man trying to wake up from a nightmare. The hallway lights flickered, then went out. The camera stayed on, bathing the corridor in the grainy green of night vision. There was nothing beside him. There was something behind him. I didn't see it move in. It was just suddenly there on the edge of the frame. The way your reflection in a window seems to appear all at once when the lights change. A tall, narrow shape darker than the darkness, with edges that refused to resolve. When it shifted, the night vision static got thicker around it, trying to hide it. Justin didn't turn around. He couldn't. His body went rigid, shoulders locking, head tilting incrementally to the side like it was being rotated by an invisible hand. His mouth opened and closed once, twice, no sound coming out. I found myself whispering his name without meaning to. The thing behind him leaned in. I saw a hand, if you could call it that, reach up toward his face. It had fingers, I think. Too many, too long, moving like they were trying to remember how muscles worked. They brushed against his cheek. He screamed. The sound blasted through the intercom at full volume, even though the knob was still turned all the way down. It was a choked, wet scream, the kind you make when you're trying not to make any noise, but pain forces it out sideways. My instincts overrode the rules. I grabbed the elevator key, slammed it into the override slot, and twisted. "Come on," I said between my teeth. "Come on, come on." The display read, "Car in use, override locked." Screw it. I grabbed the office keys, unlocked the door, and stepped into the hallway. The air outside the office hit me like a freezer door opening. My eyelashes prickled. The building lights hummed overhead, but they felt dimmer, like someone had turned the brightness down on reality. "Justin," I shouted up the stairwell. "Stay where you are, I'm coming up." Brave is stupid here. If the rules are real, and my gut told me vehemently that they were, then stepping onto those third-floor tiles at 2:15 a.m. would not help him. It would just give whatever was up there another handle to grab. I froze on the stair. My legs shook. My fingers dug into the handrail, metal burning cold against my skin. "Justin," I shouted again. "Can you hear me?" Rules: if you hear your own voice on the office intercom system, and you are alone in the office, do not respond. I wasn't in the office. The rule didn't cover this exact situation. Not explicitly. Granular rules only cover the things people lived long enough to write down. A cold part of me thought. Everything else is implied. The speaker crackled again. "Justin," it said, my voice breaking on the name this time. "Can you hear me?" I bolted back to the office, slammed the door, locked it, and pressed my back against the glass. On the monitor, the third-floor hallway was empty. No Justin, no shadow, no anything. The elevator stood with its doors open again, inviting no one in. The floor indicator above it blinked 3, a lazy pulsing number. The clock on the wall read 2:18 a.m. The heater kicked back on. Warm air breathed from the vent, turning my breath invisible again. My hands shook so hard I dropped the keys twice before I got them back into the desk drawer. I sat down. I watched the monitors until my vision blurred. There was nowhere to go. I couldn't leave the property. That was one of Carla's rules, too, written in bold at the top of the normal employee handbook. Even if I wanted to sprint out into the parking lot, there was nothing I could do but call 911 and invent a reason that didn't involve saying, "There's a ghost in my building." No more movement on the third floor. At 5:55 a.m., the elevator indicator finally changed from 3 to 1 with a little mechanical reluctance, like it hadn't done that in years. I watched the car descend on the feed, breath held. The doors slid open on the ground floor. It was empty. No Justin, no IKEA bag, no nothing. I didn't do any more patrols that night. I didn't leave the office. When Carla came in at 6:02 a.m., coffee in one hand, keys in the other, she stopped in the doorway and took one look at my face. "Tell me everything," she said. I told her. I told her about Justin jamming the elevator, about him stepping out into the hallway at 2:10, about the knocks, about the shadow on the feed, about me almost going up the stairs, and then hearing my own voice through the intercom. I left out the part where I considered running away like a coward and never coming back. I didn't need to say that. It was probably written all over me. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she set her coffee down very carefully, like it had suddenly become explosive. Then she turned to the monitors and rewound the third-floor feed. "That's impossible," I said. "I watched the whole thing. The camera saw." There was nothing between 2:10 and 2:20 a.m., no elevator stuck on 3, no knocks, no shadow, no empty hallway with a terrified tenant, just a gap. Did the system glitch? I asked. Did it overwrite? The van was still there at 2 a.m. It was still there at 3. It was still there at 5. At 5:30 a.m. it was. No one drove it out. No car passed the entrance gate. It was just gone between one frame and the next. "We're calling the police," I said. "Right, we have to. We'll call corporate first." We filed incident reports. Legal sent their people. They talked to his family. They talked to us. They talked to the cops. They decided it was best for everyone if certain details weren't emphasized. What you saw, what the cameras didn't show. Then we do what they tell us, because that's how this works if you want to keep your job. I cared about my last 2 months of rent, about my heating bill, about the fact that my bank balance had more zeros after the decimal point than before it. The police came anyway. Corporate did insist on being notified. They also insisted their regional risk manager sit in on all interviews. His name was Leonard, and he showed up in a suit too expensive for a storage facility, carrying a leather portfolio and a face like mild constipation. The cops were more relaxed at first. 2 officers, one older with a mustache, one younger with sharp eyes. They took statements. They asked for Justin's paperwork. They copied his ID. They walked the building with Carla, checked the unit, checked the locks. He ever mentioned wanting to disappear? The older one asked me. "Not really," I said. He joked about the ghost thing. I told the story again, leaving nothing out this time. When I got to the part about the knocking and the thing behind Justin on the feed, the younger cop's face tightened. The older one just scribbled notes. When I finished, there was a small silence. "Let me get this straight," the older cop said. "This guy stays up on 3 past the time you usually do your rounds. You tell him not to, he does anyway. You don't see him come down. You don't see him leave. His van disappears from your lot, and the cameras don't show any of this. Then when we rewound it, it was gone. You have any reason to think this Justin guy might be faking his disappearance?" The older one asked. "Insurance, debt, trouble with the law." I called him to remind him about the maintenance window. Like someone walking down the third-floor hallway, tapping on each unit door. We hear that every night, since I started anyway. My manager says it's been going on longer. So you think this is, what, some kind of haunting? How long has that been going on? I stopped on the stairs. The younger one closed his notebook with a soft snap. We'll file the report, he said. We'll talk to his family, to any friends we can find. We'll put a bolo out on the van in case it turns up on any traffic cams. In the meantime, if you think of anything else. When we were alone, he turned to me with an expression that tried to be kind and failed. You did the right thing, he said. I didn't do anything, I said. I watched a guy get something and then I froze. This time we lost a tenant. That is unfortunate, but from a risk management perspective, it could have been worse. Some of our locations have quirks. We've learned over time how to minimize incidents. We write the rules, we train people. Most sites never have anything serious happen if everyone plays along. We accept that in some locations, something comes along for the ride when you stack that many empty rooms together and lock them up every night. If we tried to explain that in a court of law, we'd be laughed out of the building. So we don't. We manage it internally. What do I tell his family if they come here? Everything beyond. That is speculation. Do you want to keep this job, Daniel? He asked quietly. I thought of rent, of my dwindling severance, of my inbox full of we've gone with another candidate. Then do not play hero. And you remember for the rest of your life what you heard at 2:12 in the morning. Sometimes decades. She shook her head. I'm in too deep. Mortgage, kids, you know how it is. And I've made my peace with the rules. They're simple. Don't break them. You go home. I know it's a shitty answer, but it's the only one I've got. My phone had 3 new emails. One from HR at my old insurance job telling me my COBRA paperwork was finalized. One from Regional Risk Management with a politely worded reminder about my confidentiality obligations, and one from a sender I didn't recognize. The subject line read, Lakeside, you saw it too. The message contained no text, just a link to a private forum thread on a site I'd never heard of. The URL had the company name buried in it, plus a string of numbers that probably meant something to someone. I didn't click it. I should have. I went back to work that night. Because that's what you do when you're scared and broke, and the only thing standing between you and a snowball of unpaid bills is a job that comes with a laminated list of ways not to die weirdly. The building looked the same. The corridors were the same. The 3rd floor camera showed the same empty gray hallway. There was an orange notice taped to the door of unit 329 now. Contact office. Justin's van did not reappear in the lot. His name stayed on the tenant roster, highlighted in yellow, status pending. At 2:12 a.m., the knocking started. I was in the office, door locked, rules sheet in front of me, hands flat on the desk. 3 slow taps. I watched the 3rd floor monitor. Empty hallway, flickering lights. 3 slow taps moving along. They passed the camera's field of view like a person walking by just off screen. I didn't touch the intercom. I didn't touch the elevator controls. I didn't say a word. At 2:18 a.m., the knock stopped. The night resumed its normal hum. I breathed again. I wish I could say that was the end of it, that I quit, or that the company shut the place down, or that some paranormal investigation crew rolled in with EMF meters and resolved everything, either by debunking it or by performing some ritual that sent whatever was upstairs back where it came from. None of that happened. What did happen was slower, quieter, the way real horror seeps into your life like water through hairline cracks. The first time I heard my own voice on the intercom again, it was a week later. It was 3:30 a.m. I was half asleep in the chair, book open on my chest, when the speaker erupted with static and then my groggy voice saying, "Unit 224, your lock is not fully secured. Please return to your unit to lock it properly." It was a playback of something I'd said the previous week to an absent-minded tenant. The speaker repeated it, then added in my tone but not my words, "Justin, can you hear me?" I called the emergency line Carla had given me, the one that went to corporate security. By the time anyone got there, the intercom was quiet again. "Glitch," Leonard said the next day, eyes as flat as the elevator indicator panel. "We'll replace the unit. In the meantime, continue to follow the procedures." At 2:05 a.m., I lock the office door, tests the deadbolt twice, and sit with my back to the glass. I keep the intercom volume at a level where I can hear the building alarm if it triggers, but not every whisper that comes through the lines. The knocks always come. Sometimes they're so faint I could convince myself they're pipes. Sometimes they're so loud the floor vibrates. Sometimes they skip a night, just long enough to make me wonder if it's over, if whatever fed on Justin's fear has moved on. It hasn't. It's patient. That's the worst part. It's not random. It's not a glitch. It has rules too. When new night guards get hired at other sites, because they do, because turnover on the graveyard shift is high, and people move and quit and die, we sometimes hear their stories, filtered through the company grapevine. "Hey, have you guys had any problems with the south stairwell on B2? Someone will ask in an internal chat. "My manager gave me this weird list of rules," another will say. "Is this a hazing thing?" Lakeside is one node in a network of spaces that weren't built for human beings to be in after midnight. We stack our possessions in neat rows, close the doors, and walk away. Something else walks in, curious, and finds long, dark hallways and no one to bother except the occasional underpaid schmuck with a clipboard. Why am I telling you this? Because rules only work if people know them. Because one day you might take a night job at a storage facility, or a corporate park, or a hospital basement. You'll sign a laminated sheet and think, "Wow, someone had fun with this." You'll laugh about it with your friends. You'll be exactly as skeptical as I was. And then one night, you'll hear something that doesn't fit. Knocks when there's nobody there. Footsteps in an empty hall. Your own voice where it shouldn't be. You'll stand in a stairwell at 2:15 in the morning and weigh your life against someone else's. And there won't be a right answer, just choices you have to live with afterward. If this story has a moral, it's not don't take the night shift. Somebody has to. The world runs on people willing to sit in fluorescent lit boxes while everyone else sleeps, watching for alarms that usually don't go off. The moral is this: the world is weird in ways we don't have language for. Companies like mine wrap that weirdness in NDAs and jargon and risk matrices. Folk stories wrap it in ghosts and ghouls. The truth is probably somewhere in between. There is a third-floor hallway in a concrete box on the edge of town, where space doesn't behave quite right between 2:12 and 2:18 a.m. There was a guy named Justin who thought he could beat that. Now there is one more empty unit with an orange notice taped to it, and a line on an incident report that reads, "Tenant, unaccounted FOR." Sometimes, when the knocking reaches the spot on the camera where 317 sits, the numbers flicker. Sometimes I swear I see a shape next to the door, like someone standing just off to the side, waiting. Too still to be alive, too present to be just light. On those nights, the intercom hisses softly, like someone's finger is resting on the call button, but not pressing it. If the speaker ever says my name in a voice that sounds exactly like mine, I hope I remember this moment, writing this. I hope I remember the feel of the cold on the stairwell and the weight of the laminated sheet in my hands. I hope I remember that I already broke the rules once by almost going up there, and I survived anyway, and that the cost of pushing my luck again is not something I'm willing to pay. The knocking just started again as I'm typing this, right on time. 3 slow taps, moving along. It'll be at 317 in about 30 seconds. You're reading this from wherever you are, your bed, your bus seat, your phone under your desk at work, and it probably feels very far away. It is. Every city has a place like this. Every company has rules they don't put in the handbook. And somewhere in one of those places, something is knocking, waiting for someone curious enough, brave enough, or stupid enough to answer.